And a McFlurry, an Oreo McFlurry. Cash is king.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Natives Rouseabout podcast. I'm Grant. I've got two guests with us this afternoon. Nick, how you going?
Good, mate. Good to be here.
And Tristan, how are you going, mate?
Yeah, good. Bloody hot day today, but nice to be inside at the end of the day doing a cast instead of out in the garden.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's all right. It's better than torrential rain and flood like the rest of the country's just about experiencing. And it looks like this season's going to be another La Nina bloody nightmare event, which is pretty depressing. But anyway, not talking about the weather this episode. We're going to have a little bit of a talk about finance, budgeting, just money management subjects. There's a lot of useful skills in the field which we think are worth discussing and, are fruitful and to the benefit of everyone who listens. So Tristan here is our subject matter expert on the subject of saving, and he suggested we start off discussing setting a goal. You know, why do you need a budget, Tristan?
Well, I'd start by saying, firstly, my main contribution here is do as I say, not as I do. Because I'm not the most successful saver, but I certainly have a crack and I know what works. It's me choosing to break it. But I would say that everyone needs a budget. If you think you don't need one, you probably should have one, because especially in the time of rising prices, it's really important that you know where your dollars are going and you know what you're supporting and what you can squirrel away for the future. There's always inefficiencies to be found and fixed. So that was the main thing, but I would say that the most important thing to stick into your budget is knowing why you've got it. Yeah, because otherwise, if you just go, well, I need a budget, so I'm going to set it up and have it, then you're not going to stick to it because you don't care. It's meaningless to you. You're doing something because you think you should do it, not because you want to. So it's really important to set yourself a goal. There's a couple of sort of main types of goals that people have with budgeting, which are save, X amount per X time period. You might say, all right, every pay I'm going to save $100. I'm just going to stash it away, and that's what I'm going to do. That's really good because it's easy. You just put your money away, but it doesn't really scale. So, let's say you get a better job and you're earning $300 more every pay. You've got this huge pay rise, but you're still just stashing away your $100. You're just going to be on a very linear progression there. You need it to scale. So that's where stashing X percentage of your pay comes in. So you might go, all right, I'm just going to throw in 10% of what hits my bank account goes into my savings. That's really good because it's scalable, but it's hard to be motivated. It's good seeing the pile of money grow, but that's the only motivation. You don't really have something that you're actually aiming for.
Yeah, you got to have an end goal for the whole process of budgeting. And this is something I always tell people is to think in terms of 5, 10 years, 15 years, and consider, where do you want to be, and then figure out what is the roadmap for you to get there. What turn-offs, what do you have to actually do to achieve those goals, and make a real solid strategy for doing that. And that budgeting process is a cornerstone of that for a lot of people, whether it's saving up to get your first house deposit, or to make a certain investment, or to buy something you want.
I'll just jump in there as well. Something, a pitfall that myself I've fallen into in the past with budgeting and saving is you sort of set yourself a goal and you say, right, it's going to take me X years to get there. And you sort of think, well, that's a really, really long time. How can I keep that in perspective? And something that a lot of people overlook is, over a period of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years that you might be saving for something, it's well within reason to expect that you might get a promotion, a better job, a better, another form of income, a secondary income or something like that. So you're not necessarily relegated to this $1 figure every fortnight or every pay or whatever. And it's important to keep perspective in that regard. There are going to be windfalls. You get tax back, things like that as well. So.
Yeah, it's a very true point. I know in some of my earlier years, making a long-term budget, I always had to keep that in mind, because sometimes if you are just getting started, if you're a young man just getting into your line of work, it can be a bit daunting, because when you do make a plan, you're like, well, even if I am stuck on this wage or this salary, it's going to take me 10 years. It can be done, but it's better to keep in mind and keep in motion, something we'd probably talk about in a bit later, the growing your income so you can actually achieve those savings goals earlier. But yeah, Tristan, back to where you led off.
Yeah, well, just on that point, I've sort of got two things there. So the last sort of type of goal is saving for something specific, like you guys mentioned, saving something long term. But I think that if you're new to saving, something that's really powerful is just to go, all right, what's something that I can't go out and buy right now, but I could buy in, if I stash away X amount for the next 2 or 3 pays, or however much there is, just something really short term can be really motivational and get you used to it. But the important thing there is that you have to be able to maintain that momentum and use it as sort of training wheels, because otherwise, I don't know, let's say you want to buy a guitar, it's $1,000. It's going to take you 10 weeks of pay to save up enough, right? Put away $100 every pay. So you do that, that's great. You go out, you buy your guitar, you're like, yep, goal achieved, fantastic. But then at the end of that, you go, oh, well, shit, now I don't have to save for anything. You just fall back to your old spending habits. You're not putting anything away. So you've got to be able to keep it rolling with that. And that's sort of a good way to lead into that long-term thinking, is to have a couple of short-term goals to get you used to it. And you get that quick reward. You get to do the high time preference bit, but you teach yourself to do the low time preference bit by doing that. You sort of get used to it. You take the training wheels off, and then you're like, right, house time, 3 years, I'm doing it. The other thing that's important to do with those long-term goals is to have milestones. So you mentioned that you can sort of make it exponential in terms of saying, well, let's say I need 30 grand in 3 years' time. And on my current pay, that's 10 grand every year, which might be a massive stretch. But you can sort of go, all right, well, in those 3 years, I need to increase my pay. So I'll save 15 grand the first 2 years and 15 grand in the last year. So that's a good way to actually motivate you to get out and improve your skills and improve your situation in terms of your career and your pay and things like that, if you need it to be able to ramp up in that way. Doesn't mean it's always going to work, but you're always better off saving 25 grand in 3 years because your plan didn't really work than just saving nothing at all. Yeah. And what you can do is set particular points along that line. So go, all right, by the end of this year, I need to have X. By the end of the next year, I need to have X. And that gives you that short-term motivation to keep you on track, so that you're not getting, this is a trap I fall into, where I need money for something, or I need to get an assignment done, and I do nothing, and then a week out I go, oh fuck, I've got 5,000 words to write.
Yeah, just actually, yeah, we'll just move on.
Yeah, righto. So yeah, I mean, we talked about setting that proportion that scales to your income. That's obviously that's some pretty good advice.
Sorry, I just remembered what I was going to say when I started talking. Another thing to keep in mind for young fellas is don't let a setback dash your, completely destroy your plans. There are going to be setbacks. You will have, unexpected maintenance on your car. You might need to pay for some, medical intervention. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe you're out of work for a couple of weeks. That doesn't mean, sure, it means that, it's going to be more difficult for you to achieve your goal, and maybe you won't quite get there. But that doesn't mean that in the next fortnight or in the next pay cycle, you still can't put money aside. Maybe short term you have to pause or reduce. But it doesn't mean your plans are totally crashed.
Yeah. And the demoralizing element of that is the most important thing. A lot of people, when they have a setback, will just get frustrated and say, "Oh, fuck it, I'm just going to spend all this money and just have a good time." And I can definitely say that that's been me in the past. But especially before I had a family, that was sort of my way of thinking. All or nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, something I struggle with using the envelope system for budgeting is that if I blow out my budget, which is usually my discretionary income that I blow out, let's be honest, I just go, fucked it this month. Let's just go ham. It doesn't matter. And that's a really hard mindset to break yourself out of, because, you sort of go, well, I've exceeded my budget by $10. What's 100? What's 150? It doesn't matter anymore. And it's really hard to break yourself out of. But it's really important to be mindful of that sort of inclination and try to avoid falling into those traps.
Yeah, 100%.
I know one thing I do when in that situation is I think of all the time and effort it took to actually earn that money that I'm currently thinking of spending. Like it's the pain you endure to earn an income far surpasses the short-term frivolous pleasures you can get out of pissing it up the wall. So that's something everyone should keep in mind when they have that savings envelope up on the shelf or whatever, and they're thinking about going and burning it. It's much harder to earn than it is to spend, and that's something to forget, or not to forget, something to remember. Tell us about some of the different savings methods, Tristan. I mean, you just mentioned the envelope method. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the envelope method is sort of a very traditional method of budgeting. It's so called because people would get their paycheck and they'd have a series of envelopes, right? You can be as granular or as simplistic as you want with it. You might just have an envelope for bills, an envelope for fun, and you put however much you pay into bills and however much into fun, and that's what you do. But then you can, most sort of modern envelope system, which is what a lot of budgeting apps use, and what I personally use with my custom Excel spreadsheet, which is impossible to use for anyone except for me, is I have groceries, I have fuel, I have car maintenance, I have my electricity, I have my water bill, my rent, everything. And I have a budgeted amount each month that I need to allocate. And so what I do is, to steal from YNAB, one of the apps I'll talk about later, is that I give every dollar a job, is their sort of slogan. So when I get paid, I sit down with my spreadsheet and I allocate everything out. And so I don't have any sort of loose end money. Anything that's loose end money goes into my savings account and goes into the savings line in my budget. So I can always look at my budget and say, how much do I have for fuel? I've got $100. Okay, that's what I can spend. How much do I have for my electricity? Right, that's going to be due next month. I've got so much saved up for it. I should be able to hit that next month. That's fine. But it means that you always have that money available. And when things come up, instead of trying to scrounge around, you've predicted what that's going to cost you. And you've been stashing that money away in advance so that when it comes around, you can just go bang, that's in. Doesn't matter. Nothing's a surprise. Nothing hurts you. And having that certainty over what each dollar's job is actually means that you have a lot more cash just sort of sitting there, not being spent. Because instead of looking at your pool of money and going, I've got $1,000, I've got $2,000, you look at it and you go, well, that's $300 for electricity and $100 for fuel and $400 for groceries for the month and whatever it happens to be assigned to. It means that you don't actually ever have just unallocated money floating around.
That might tempt you to spend it too.
Well, exactly. If it's not allocated, you go, well, I can just use that. That's mine. But if it sort of belongs to the budget in a way, if you can get yourself into that mindset, you sort of get more detached from it. So that works really well for me, but it can get complicated and it can be quite detailed, and people don't necessarily like that level of detail or can keep up with it. So that's where using like a percentage system is really useful. So you just say, all right, 20% of my money is going into savings, 20% I'm going to use as discretionary funds, and then 60% will be used for my bills, for groceries, things like that. And some people have bank accounts so that they have, they might have 3 accounts. They've got bills, savings, and whatever. And they'll just put the amount into bills, the amount into savings, and the amount into the discretionary account. And then that's just what's there, and that's what they can use. So they keep the money separate, because this system's a lot harder to use if you are keeping it all in one account, because you can't just look at your account and see how much you've got. But the advantage of that system is that it's very simple. The thing I would advise with using that system is that you have to know what your bills are, and you have to know that you're going to be able to cover them. This is a system I used to use, and what I did was I sat down and I broke out all my bills into a spreadsheet and then calculated how much, so I paid fortnightly, how much every fortnight I actually needed to put into my bills account to cover all those, like to cover the average fortnightly bill cost. And that didn't really work for me, but that's the way you do it, because it's very easy to just pick a number out of thin air and go, right, I want X amount for bills. But if it's not covering it, it's useless.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that you've just basically described my exact system. I mean, I when I first bought a house and got married and all that, when I was, into my career early days, we had next to bloody no money. We were lucky to drink water out of the tap. And what I did was put together a real thorough spreadsheet which had all of our predictable and foreseeable expenses on it over the space of an entire year, and then figured out that's how much money I need to save over a year, divide that into my weekly pay, and that would be how much money from my weekly pay that I would have automatically transferred into another bank account, which I just would not touch under any circumstances. So that way, even though we were getting by on the skin of our teeth, every time a bill came up or every time an expense came up, there was money there because I'd planned it out. So, it may be a little bit of detail, a little bit of effort in figuring out what your expenses are. But if you live a pretty vanilla existence, you can keep track of all those expenses and look at your records over the last year or so and figure out what your actual cost is going to be, and then plan for it. Calculate that total number, and then calculate how much every week you need to be saving and putting aside for that. And then you can figure out just how much money you've got left over for other discretionary spending or saving up for investment or whatever else. Very powerful system in my experience, and I'm a big advocate of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the most important thing is that you have to have something that works for you. What I used to do when I did that system is that I would enter all my expenses at the end of the month and see how I stacked up, and I'd go, oh crap, I completely blew out my budget. So this allocation in advance system works pretty well for me. It has its pitfalls, but as I've got more used to it, it makes it a lot easier because I can just look at it and go, I've got that much. And I know. And I've got a record of what I've been spending because I record it as I go. And that works for me, but it's a lot of detail. It's a fair bit of, it's not a huge amount of effort, but it took me a while to get set up. I sit down every couple of days, I count up how much cash I've got, I look at my bank account, I punch that into my spreadsheet, I punch in all my expenses, and I make it balance. So that's a bit of work, and I'm an accountant, so I don't really care. Like, I'm used to it. That's how I roll. If you don't want to do that, the allocation system is really, really good for set and forget, but like you said, Matt, you have to make sure that you're going to be covering things. Also, I would say that the beauty of having any sort of budgeting system is it gives you that certainty. Like your system, like you said, even though you were scraping by, you knew that anything that came up, you could just go, yeah, I can pay that.
Yep.
I've got the money for it. I've figured it out.
Just on that topic of allocating funds. So my wife handles most of the sort of household budget because I'm pretty hopeless with it. But one thing that she does is she utilises with the energy companies and all that, she utilises payment plans, not paying everything late, but calculating what is to be expected, having the energy company or whatever, calculating what is to be expected the bill's going to be, and that just gets deducted out of the account every pay. And that way, energy bills, when they come, I mean, we see them, but we don't really feel them as much in the pocket.
Yeah, you're just paying them progressively. That's pretty smart. I didn't know you could even do that.
Yeah, that system works really well. And, it depends what your preference is. For me, as an accountant, I hold on to cash until I absolutely have to let go of it. So that's just my proclivity, which has been trained up through years in the workforce. But if that works for you, that's a really excellent system that, like you said, you don't have to think about it. There's no big cash outflow. It just sort of comes out and you're covered. And that's a great service.
Yeah,
it's really, that's
exactly right. And in the wintertime, we know that our gas bills are going to be more expensive. So over that period of winter, more money is deducted. So you do feel it, but it's not, you don't get hit with that big bill shock, which can really be very, very stressful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing that derails a lot of people. It derailed me. And, I never paid a bill late or I've paid rent late or anything like that in my life. But certainly when I was younger and living paycheck to paycheck, I'd get these big things that would come up and hurt. And I'd go, oh, how am I going to handle this? and always managed to make it work and pay it on time and all the rest of it. But certainly having that big cash outflow really hurts when you're living paycheck to paycheck. And that's another
and the stress of it. I would argue that the stress of that actually costs money. Whether that be in increased spending, maybe you go out for a few more drinks than you would normally. Maybe you go and treat yourself to a meal because you're too stressed out. Stress is a financial. It hurts you financially.
Yeah, definitely, and it just hurts you in all aspects of life. And you don't have to. I think people say money doesn't buy happiness, but I think there is something to be said about having enough money to cover your bills. Of course, it's
money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys a lot of things that can make you happy.
Yeah, definitely. But I would even say that there's something calming about knowing that your bills are covered. You're not worried, even if you don't have a huge amount spare. It's actually a lot less stressful to just know that you can cover everything.
Yeah.
And so you don't actually need to have a higher income. You just need to learn how to manage the income that you're on.
Mm.
And in a lot of ways, in a lot of workplaces, if you're feeling less stressed, if you're feeling more able to do things and more capable, then that's probably going to be reflected in your work and in your life in general, and that might then lead to more income.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, and that's the thing as well, like, just getting back to that point we kind of touched on earlier, just the importance of career development in everyone's life to earn a more meaningful and secure income is just such an important thing. I think really everyone should be, probably before the age of 30, you should be spending a great deal of your time not only working and getting experience through work, but also studying. I mean, there's different stuff you can do. I mean, you could even study through work in a way. Sometimes you may need to take a lower paying job, but that lower paying job is paying you an experience and skills which you otherwise wouldn't get. Like you can get a job sitting at a chair at a checkpoint issuing people security passes for $30 an hour and be better off financially in the short term, or you can take a job $25 working in a factory or a warehouse, learning a skill set which will actually make you valuable or invaluable to a business and allow you to leverage your income. So there's a lot of tactical decisions like that as well. Like don't always just look at face value at the dollar figure at a job or at a career option, but think also in terms of what skills is it teaching you. Are those skills industry specific? Are you going to become a subject matter expert in something, or are they going to be even broad management kind of skills which you can take anywhere? So those kinds of jobs are out there that are they're paid a little bit less than what you might desire when you're getting started out, but they pay you in dividends. The rest of your life, the experience you earned at that job will be paying you, and you always got to remember that in the temporal mindset. The investment you make into your work and building experience and building relationships and skills that are valuable, those skills and relationships pay you dividends for the rest of your life, regardless of where you are in terms of what company you work for or something like that. You need to consider the full circle of life dividend that's paid by skills and experience. And the same thing can be said for study. When you go out there and do a Cert 4 in management, or you do a diploma, or you do a university degree that's relevant to some kind of field of work or industry, the time you invest into that, the year or 2 years or 4 years you invest into that will be paying dividends for the rest of your life. So those kind of decisions, those investments you make of your time and effort, and you invest stress into study and work, if you put it in the right place, it will pay dividends for the rest of your life, and your bottom line for the rest of your life will see a gain. Thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I started my career with the Big Four, which was pretty shit. It's a bad place to work. It's rough. They expect really long hours. The pay's not great. There's a whole lot of diversity crap that gets forced down your throat. But then they paid for my CA. I did 3 years there, and I've realised over the years subsequent that I learnt so much in that job, in that role, that's just puts me head and shoulders above people who've spent their whole lives just in management accounting. And it's been such a boon to have that sort of lower pay and the rough work for a couple of years has paid off enormously for me. And that's actually, like, I'm starting a job in about a month that I wouldn't have got without that experience, and is a significant pay rise and significant responsibility rise from what I've been doing previously.
Yeah, I'll jump in there as well. I've had a number of different, sort of career paths in my life. What am I, 34 now, something like that. And I've just, in the last year, I've done another sort of career change, but really more thinking long term now that I have a family, which has been a real kick in the arse for me. Maybe it's not for everyone, but it has been for me. So looking at my path forward, looking at what I can do, pretty much always sort of researching, how can I advance my position, it's really important to keep in your mind, because that's something that I'm always thinking of. Where am I going to be in 5 years? Where am I going to be? So I have a pretty good plan ahead for what I'm doing, and it's really important for other guys to be able to do the same as well. You're not always going to be in your 20s, and it's going to sneak up on you. One day you're going to wake up and you'll be in your 30s and you'll think, shit, what do I do? Because for me, I sort of had that moment. I sort of feel like I wasted a bit of time in my 20s, just sort of, stuffing around.
Yeah, and you don't get that time back, To everyone listening,
no.
You can't set that clock back. Stop screwing around, as they will say. Pull a finger out and sort out what you're going to do. Don't wait until you.
Yeah, sort your shit out.
Yeah, sort your shit out, mate. As was famously said in Shaun of the Dead, he said, "Sort your fucking life out, mate." But basically that. Yeah, get out. Figure out where do you want to be. You can. The world is your oyster. If you have a plan, you might have a lot of intrinsic things which set you back, and this gets back to this shit you always hear.
And sorry, let me jump in there, Grant, as well. Say something else. Like, it's not easy to figure out what you want to do. I mean, I don't necessarily know, or I don't necessarily know I'm going to be in this industry still in 5 years' time. But what I am doing is laying the path ahead. So if I do want to switch industries, I'm not going to be going back to the first rung on the ladder. I'm going to have, I've already got, sort of mid-level management experience. At the moment, I'm studying so I can get, sort of upper middle management experience and hopefully into sort of some national level management experience as well in the next sort of 3 to 5 years. So if I did switch industry in 5, 6, 7 years time, I'm still going to have those highly, highly applicable skills and experiences in managing people, teams, budgets, equipment, things like that.
Yeah, that's right. There are those universal skill sets that are applicable, just about everywhere. But yeah, to get back to the train of thought I was having, saying that the world is your oyster. There's a lot of people that'll shirk at that thought, and they'll say, the system's rigged, the system's out to get you, blah, 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 blah. And that may very well be true. But how do you respond to that? Is your response to the system being rigged that you are going to claim to be Indigenous, claim additional welfare benefits, sit around on the couch, punch a few cones, and watch pornography? Or are you actually going to realize the fact that, the system may be rigged? Yes, in some way or another, it may be out to get me, may be out to make it life harder for me. The best response you can do is to do the best you can do in the circumstances. Work hard, study, become an invaluable part of an organization. Those are the real things you can actually do, and those things can still be achieved.
Yeah. And on that point, that defeatist sort of attitude of, oh, the system's rigged, what's the point? That's a really poisonous thought. And it really, really made me waste a lot of years thinking, the system's rigged, what's the point? Why even bother? And if I had made the decisions that I'm making now, or I have made in the last couple of years, if I'd made those decisions 10 years earlier, I would own multiple properties by now. I know it. I know it for a fact. And so the system may be rigged, and I would argue it is rigged against you, and it sucks. But are you going to lay down and are you going to lay down and act like just like a slob and just, oh, what's the point? Or are you going to act your race? That's the question.
Act your race. I like it. That's a good one. I would also say that there's, plenty of guys in A&A who have done or are doing all of this. So that's your best thing, is to talk to your fellow members if you are a member and see what they've done and what they're doing and what advice you can get from them. We've got a broad range of people, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that is a big thing that we focus on in the A&A. The great writer and revolutionary Che Guevara wrote about the cadres, which is that class of people in society which have influence over all the institutions of commerce and industry because of their skills in their employment. And they, due to their community and family ties, they have influence more generally across Cuban society. So when Che Guevara was working on his not Cuban society, other generic South American society, when he was working on his revolutionary strategy, it was to target these people that had influence in the community, that had employment, that had skills, and he didn't target the unemployed NEET that had no skills or no future, because they're useless. They're basically trash. They can't achieve any meaningful gain in a kind of a revolutionary context. So in the same way, we focus on taking young men that maybe the system has made opportunity far from them, and to try and, by all reasonable efforts, give them the advice and the encouragement and the support needed to give them skills and ability and opportunity to become that pedigree of person which wields influence.
Absolutely. I mean, just in the position that I am in now, if there was someone in my town, an A&A fella in my town who needed a job, I could give it to him. I could make sure that he got it. Now, it wouldn't be a great job. It'd be an entry-level job, working underneath me as me being the supervisor. But in the next sort of 3 to 5 years, as I've been saying, I'm going to be in a position where I'm going to be able to offer those supervisor positions. And then eventually I'm going to be able to offer those sort of mid-level management positions as well. And these are in the A&A, part of, I believe, the overall goal is to build a parallel society so that we can help our fellow man out. And this is how we do it. We don't do it by, as you say, jerking off to hentai and punching cones on the couch. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that is a powerful subject you've touched upon as well. I mean, I've been in that position for years.
What, hentai?
No. Employment. being able to
go
give
for hours. Let's not get sidetracked.
Yeah.
I'm not a subject matter expert. We'll need another one.
Yeah. That's one of the greatest powers that a nationalist can be afforded in today's society. Even if you're only able to give people bottom end jobs, if those are entry level jobs that are secure, you can change someone's life. I've hired a lot of well-minded people in my time in various positions in various companies, and it's a great feeling to give someone a chance and to really help them succeed in life and make the next step. And it's something everyone should be striving for, is to put themselves into a position, even starting their own business or punching their way into management and whatever other company they're in, to be able to afford people an opportunity. And that's something a lot of the people in the ANA have done over the years, is to afford people opportunity and give them a chance to excel and grow as a person and to find meaningful and secure employment. And then helping advise them on the next step. What study should you be doing to reach the next level, and what other things should you be doing in the workplace to sharpen yourself and increase your value to your employment. Really important skills.
On that topic as well. Sorry, I'll just say something else on that topic as well of finding meaningful employment. Not all employment is going to feel meaningful. And that's a bit of a tripping hazard for people on this path as well. I think you might be in a dead end job or whatever, or maybe you're working a job where you're sort of sitting around for ages, as you said earlier, handing out security passes. Well, that's a 12-hour shift. What are you going to do in that 12-hour shift? Are you going to sit there and browse the internet and or listen to music, or maybe you can apply that time in another way.
Yeah, learn skills. I mean, I've done it. I've done night shift and studied a diploma. Just on work hours. It can absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm studying a diploma, mostly during work hours. Some at home as well. Whenever I can get a minute at work, though. I mean, I'm getting paid. I may as well be working.
Yeah, that's a big red pill for a lot of people. If you're in one of those jobs where you do actually get free time to use it, really utilize it. Use that time to get out of that job you're in. Very, very important skill.
Yeah, right, fellas. So it'll just bring us back on track here as we come in to the tail end of our stuff on budgeting. So I would say, in terms of getting back on track, that tracking is the most important part of making sure you stick to your budget. It's no use if you're not looking back and seeing how you're actually progressing, how you're sticking to it, how things are going. If you're just trundling along and putting your money in your accounts and spending it and it seems to be working, that's fantastic. But there's always room for improvement, and there's always room to make sure that you're using your money in the best way possible. You want to make sure you have enough money to cover your bills, but equally you don't want to be throwing so much away and your bills have changed and actually you've got 50 extra bucks you could be throwing into savings every month rather than throwing it into your bills account. So there's sort of several ways to do that. There's the old Excel spreadsheet, which is handy if you know your way around Excel, but can be cumbersome. There's plenty of apps. I've used YNAB, which is really, really good. I like it. I rate it. The only reason I stopped using it, because you've got to pay for it, is that I built an Excel spreadsheet that does the same thing. And, and a lot of banks actually have sort of expenditure tracking systems built in too. So there's plenty of easy ways to do it. It's just a matter of making sure that you know what your expenses are, and you just checking in once a month. All it takes is sitting down 5 or 10 minutes every month and just see how you're going, see if you're on track, make sure that you're meeting your budget. It's really important thing to do, because it's really important that you evaluate how you're going, that you refine it, that you continue to make sure not only that you're sticking to it, but that it's working for you and you're using your budget in a way that is most effective. Like I said, if you're leaving $50 on the table that you could be saving, well, you can find that by paying attention to what you're spending. If you find that every month you're overspending your grocery budget, then you need to figure out if you can bring it back to the right level, or if you just need to allocate more money to groceries. And that's really, really important, is making sure that you are continually checking it and making sure that you're going well, that you're meeting it, that you're matching it, that it's working for you.
Yeah, that's right. And if it is working for you, make a point to celebrate that. Maybe not by spending money, but pat yourself on the back. This is one of those skills which a lot of people just simply don't have. There's a lot of people just walking kind of week to week with no idea about their bloody bills, and then they just have a breakdown when the seasonal bills arrive. And if you can save money towards a greater purpose, like, you know, investing it to build that lifelong of dividend, you know, that's a great thing. You're on the right road, and any amount of that kind of saving and investment is better than the none you would have had if you weren't making these plans.
Absolutely.
Even if you're only saving a measly $50 a week, you know, over the space of a year, that's a half honest bit of savings and investment, and it's a great testimony to self-discipline and endurance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the good thing with tracking it and checking it, if you know you've got that check-in at the end of every month or however frequently you feel you need to do it, you're actually more likely to stick to it, because otherwise when you sit down to do it, you're just going to be disappointed, you're going to be cranky with yourself, you're going to feel guilty, all those things that, you know, we know and love when it comes to money. So you're better off, if you're doing those check-ins, it's actually really motivational. And that's sort of my last point would be that you've got to figure out a way, not just a budget that works for you, but a way that you're going to stick to it. Because that's the really hard part, is sticking to it. Because it's very easy to look at your bank account and go, I've got X amount of money. This shiny thing is X amount of money. I'm doing it.
Mm.
Yeah, so on that note, what motivates me, as I've said before, it's my family. My family, my wife, my son, they motivate me. They keep me motivated. If it wasn't for them, I'd be living like I was a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago, you know. Now, that's not going to be the same for everyone. But on that note, every man in the ANA should be pumping out kids as often as they can.
Yeah, everyone should be striving towards that life goal. I know even before I had a wife and children myself, when I was, you know, a young man, I was saving money with the thought that every dollar I save now is another meal on the table of the family that I yet do not know. And you know, I would impart that wisdom on every young man who's listening, is to consider that every dollar you save now and that you discipline save will be another pleasure and another joy for your family, which you do not yet know. And that's a very important thing to keep in the back of your mind, that the decisions you make now and the spending choices and the saving choices and the budgeting you do now and the skills you do at work and the study you do now will affect you for the rest of your life. And a lot of hardship can be avoided in life if you make correct decisions now and live with the thought of the impact of that decision for the rest of your life versus thinking in a short-term kind of frivolous context.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good way to look at it. And, you know, we're all white men. We've got that low time preference. We've got to put it to good use. It's very easy to be drawn in by the shiny baubles of modernity. But
on that topic, though, I'm just going to play the devil's advocate just for a little bit. With saving long term things, I think it's also important to save short term for things that are going to bring you a bit of happiness. And you know, it's important to have hobbies, things that you can spend your money on and not feel guilty about it. Now, it's also important to make the distinction between the two, and it's up to each individual man to decide how much he can spend on his hobbies. But if you don't have hobbies, you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out real fast.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I sort of noted recently is that I was falling into the habit of going down with my co-workers and buying a coffee when they went, because they'd say, "Oh, come along." And I'd think, "Oh, yeah, you know, it's nice. We go, we have a chat." And then I'd go down to the cafe. "Oh, I'll buy a coffee. It's no problem." But then I sort of think, well, the enjoyment ratio of that, you know, $5 that I've thrown away on a coffee, if I took that $5 and put it towards one of my hobbies, it's significantly different. The same thing with buying booze. You know, I was a smoker for a long time, the amount of money I threw away on that is just astonishing. But that's the thing, right? It's just, you smoke it, it's gone. You drink it, it's gone. going out for meals is a real money suck for a lot of people, and it's so transient. I'm not saying don't do it, because it's nice to go out for a nice meal every now and then. It's nice to have a coffee every now and then, or have a drink. But something I like to think about is like, all right, I've got this pool of discretionary money. How can I spend it in the way that's actually going to get me the most enjoyment?
But even on that topic, even on going out for a nice dinner, you can turn that into a hobby. My wife and I really enjoy the fine dining experience. And it is very, very expensive, but it's something we do a couple of times a year, and it brings us a lot of enjoyment. And so for us, that's worth it, that money. It does seem like a bit crazy when you see the bills that come from, these fine dining restaurants.
But that's sort of a bit different.
Yeah. But you're doing it a couple of times a year. So, you can turn, say you do like going out for a meal. Well, maybe instead of going out to the pub for a snitty, you save up for a couple of months and you go out to a fine dining restaurant or an amazing steakhouse. And you're going to have, you're going to get a lot more enjoyment out of that than you would by just going to the pub. And if you go to the pub, you're not just getting a snitty either. You're going to get, 1 or 6 or 20 beers as well. That's what happens with me anyway.
And everything you take when you go to the pub, every dollar you take out of your wallet, you're going to be pissing and shitting out that night if you've got good digestion. Just think about it.
That's right.
That money is literally going to get flushed down the toilet that later that evening. So I mean, if it's a big deal to you, if going out and spending money on food and booze and all of that adds great value to your life, then absolutely do it and make the budget accordingly. But one thing I always keep in mind is when you spend money on food and drink, it will be flush. It's almost like taking the money out of your wallet, putting it in the toilet, and hitting the flush button. Unless you get a lot of enjoyment out of it, which you do from time to time. But I think there's a great pedigree of people who just eat out just via habit and just because they're lazy and all of that.
Oh man! And when I was single, I fell into that. I fell into that habit so often, because when you're not budgeting and when you're single and you've got all this discretionary income, what's $20? What's another $20 later that day? What's another $20 later that day?
What's another $8 for a schooner, and then you ended up spending $100.
Yeah.
And I think the key point there is you need to be intentional about it. Like you were saying, Nick, you like to have a fine dining experience. I mean, look, I've had a few of those in my life, and they're just brilliant. It's something you remember. It's something you think about. You're like, wow, that meal was awesome. But then equally, I'll go and drop $40 on Thai takeaway because I can't be bothered cooking, and that's complete waste.
Yeah, that to some people that's half a week's groceries for one meal, which you're flushing down that toilet. Think of how many cans of beans you can buy for $40.
The true budget master.
I think my wife would kill me if I did that.
Bro, she's just got to build character. The final red pill is to live on oats, canned beans. Mincemeat used to be good. Mince has kind of gone up a bit now. So you got to get a hunting permit, kill one of those giant rabbits that jump around, and learn how to prepare that meat in such a way that it's not detestable. Grow your own fruit and veggies as much as you can. But yeah, food is a big one. Food is a real money sink if you think about it at the end of the day. If you eat well, like if you don't buy goy slop, basically, it's costing you. And consider where you can replace these primo T-bone steaks with a good Devon sandwich, with some...
I don't think you can replace a T-bone steak with a Devon sandwich, mate.
That's the words of a man who's never tried.
Yeah, you can do a lot. You can do a lot with Devon. I won't get into it, but I think
you can flush it down the toilet. You can ping people with it.
I feel
the next episode will be Matt's Devon cooking hour.
I feel like Greg's kitchen is cooked with Devon before. I could be wrong, but old Grego, I'm sure he has. But yeah, anyway, look, we've gone on too long. Just to sum that up, guys, don't waste your time. plan your budget, figure out where all your money is going, and plan to allocate that money, I think is the best starting point for all of this. And just stay disciplined. Don't touch it. If you put that money in a separate account, keeping it aside for your bills or your savings, don't touch it, man. That's taking from your future.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I think I just want to add one last thing, is that, this is at least in my experience, that PayPass is the devil. Like, I have started using cash, and it just completely changes the way you think about things. Because every time you take a 50 out of your wallet, you go, oh, boy. But if I go to Coles, and it's $50 for my groceries, and I tap that card, it's just like, yep, tap the card, no stress, whatever. It is what it is. You take that yellow bill out of your wallet, it's just a completely different relationship, completely different mentality.
Yeah,
and it's really helped me a lot.
That's pretty interesting. I'm gonna have to think about doing that.
Yeah, that is pretty good advice. I could see that happening. I'm too low agency to go to an ATM though, so I probably won't pick that up.
Well, and a lot of places aren't accepting cash anymore as well.
Yeah, not good. We've got to return to the traditional family slave labor Chinese restaurant that only accepts cash.
That's it.
Yeah, anyway, righto. Well, we'll leave it on that, gentlemen. Thank you for your time, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We hope you got some good wisdom out of our discussion. And next episode, we're going to be having a bit of a talk about the Shearers' strike of 1891 and its implications for Australian history and our political trajectory more broadly. So, thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Look forward to it. Yeah, God save the King.
Oi, you! Shut your mouth and look at my wad! Loads of money!
This is a journey into money. Loads of money. I know. It's loads of money.
What's they spell? Loads of money, probably.
Made a right load of finishing knowledge this weekend.
Well, lads, what's out for the ladies? Loads of. Money. Loads of. Right, whop it out. What that? Loads of money. Whop it out. Loads of money.
Good evening and welcome to Loads of Money.
Doing up the ass is my bread and butter. My bird's page free and my car's a nutter. Loads of money is the shout I utter as I wave my wad and the geezers in the gutter. Eric B on your bike.
This is an insult to our intelligence.
Shut your mouth.
Nurse, coming to attend to loads of money. He's got too much money.
The ransom demand is $1 million. That's nothing. I'm on that in a day.
Probably. I'm more money in stock Aiken and Dennis Waterman put together. Certainly know how to do up the house, and they're taking home a pretty tidy pay packet too.
Shut your mouth.
So the final score, Manchester United 0, Loads of Money United, loads.
That's a final score there. Pump up the football, pump up the football.
Hey, check this out. Sorry, mate, don't take checks. Just loads of money.
Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of dosh. Dibble, 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 bosh, bosh, bosh. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of dosh. Dibble, 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 bosh, bosh, bosh. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket